The anniversary trip to the Bahamas felt off. Emma, my wife of 15 years, had been unusually distant in the weeks leading up to it. The usual excited chatter about packing, itinerary planning, even choosing the right shade of sunscreen, had been replaced with chilling silence, punctuated only by curt replies and the constant tapping of her phone. I chalked it up to stress. We were both working long hours, juggling kids, activities, and the pressure maintaining our upper-middle-class lifestyle. Or so I thought. Ironically, the trip only intensified the unease. While I marveled at the turquoise waters and pristine beaches, Emma seemed detached. She spent most of her time glued to her phone, her eyes darting nervously whenever I got close. We barely touched. The intimacy that once defined our relationship had been replaced by a suffocating emptiness. I tried to bridge the gap, suggested romantic walks, candlelit dinners, anything to rekindle what we once had. But my efforts were met with perfunctory smiles and fleeting physical contact. It was as if she was going through the motions, her heart and mind a million miles away. Suspicion began to gnaw at me. There was no dramatic revelation, just a slow, agonizing buildup, a creeping dread that solidified with each unanswered question and every furtive glance. Still, I clung to the hope that I was imagining it all, that the stress, the distance, the coldness were temporary. On our last day, while packing for the airport, I noticed something strange. Emma, usually meticulous, was rushed and sloppy. She shoved clothes into her suitcase almost carelessly. But there was one thing she handled with caution, a small, worn leather satchel she kept separate and untouched. She held it close, guarding it. The flight home was silent and tense. Emma didn't speak much, staring blankly out the window with an unreadable expression. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. We arrived home late. The kids were already asleep, and we went straight to bed. Neither of us said much. I lay awake most of the night, my mind racing. The weight of my suspicions pressed down on me like a stone. The next morning, Emma left early, claiming she needed to catch up on work. I stayed home with the kids, but once they were off to school, I found myself drawn to the guest room. It hadn't been touched since we returned from a trip. I decided to tidy up, hoping it would calm my nerves. That's when I found it. A small tear in the lining of Emma's suitcase, nearly invisible and buried beneath folded clothes. My heart pounded as I reached into the opening and pulled out a soft, vibrant emerald green silk scarf. It wasn't hers. I'd never seen it before. It carried a faint, unfamiliar scent of expensive perfume. Embroidered in one corner was a single, delicate initial, J. I kept searching. Tucked into a hidden side pocket was a small bottle of perfume, matching the one on the scarf. Then a receipt from a high-end jewelry store. And finally, a crumpled photograph. Emma, smiling alongside a handsome, dark-haired man I didn't recognize. His arm was around her waist. His smile had a smugness that made my stomach churn. It hit me like a punch. Emma had been having an affair. All the late nights, the silence, the way she clung to that satchel. It all made sense now. The denial I'd been living in shattered instantly. The truth was brutal, sharp, and undeniable. The pain was physical. I felt it in my chest, in the pit of my stomach, in every breath. Years of shared memories, of trust and commitment, of raising a family, all reduced to ashes in an instant. The anger came in waves, starting as a low simmer and quickly boiling over into something far more dangerous. Still, I said nothing. I needed time to process, to think. I went through the motions for days, school drop-offs, dinners, bedtime stories, all while silently unraveling inside. Every night, once the house was quiet, I'd sit alone, staring at the photograph, the receipt, the scarf. That vibrant green had once been beautiful. Now it made my skin crawl. A week later, Emma came home late again, still smelling faintly of that same perfume. I was waiting, the photograph clutched in my hand. One look at my face and her own facade cracked. I asked her to sit. My voice was quiet, steady, but cold. She tried to deflect at first. Nervous eyes, shaky voice, the usual rehearsed lines. He was just a friend. It was a mistake. It meant nothing. but her face betrayed her, and I laid out the evidence piece by piece. The scarf, the perfume, the receipt, the photo. Each item was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. But my fury was unmistakable. I reminded her of the life we'd built, the sacrifices we'd made, the trust she'd shattered. My words were raw, unfiltered, and devastating. She cried, not from remorse, but from guilt and the realization that the life she had taken for granted was slipping away. Her pleas for forgiveness fell on deaf ears. I couldn't forgive her. I didn't want to. I filed for divorce the next day. And what followed was catastrophic for her. The legal process was cold and swift. She lost a house, the car, a good portion of her savings. But those material losses were nothing compared to what mattered most: our children's respect, her reputation, her sense of security. Word of her affairs spread quickly. She became the subject of whispers, the cautionary tale told at dinner parties. The man in the photograph, the mysterious Jay, turned out to be a married businessman with no intention of leaving his wife. When Emma realized he wasn't going to save her, she was already drowning in the consequences of her choices. I focused on healing for myself and for the kids. It wasn't easy. Some days the grief and anger still threatened to pull me under. But I found strength in protecting my children from the worst of it, in slowly rebuilding a life without her. The green scarf remained with me, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder, not of Emma's betrayal, but my own resilience. It symbolized the end of something built on lies and the beginning of something far more honest. A life shaped by truth, by strength, and by quiet resolve.